Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this important conversation. I'm Jen Gugliotti, Head of Brand and Reputation at Colonial Life in Unum, and a member of the Executive Committee of United Way of the Midlands Women in Philanthropy. Colonial Life is thrilled to sponsor today's event, which is the first in a series of conversations focused on how we can all be better allies. Inclusion and diversity is an important part of our company culture, and we are happy to partner with the United Way for these conversations. Today, one of my colleagues, Chantel Respert, who is an AVP in our legal department and a passionate member of our Women's Professional Network and Race and Ethnicity Employee Resource Groups, will be moderating, and Sarah Fawcett, CEO of the United Way of the Midlands, will close us out. Now to our guest speaker. Rosalind Goodwin serves as Vice President for Engagement and a lobbyist for the South Carolina Hospital Association. She's passionate about improving the well-being of populations through health and human services. Rosalind serves as the primary link with many private and public sector stakeholders, including policymakers, community and advocacy groups, insurers, and employers. Prior to joining SCHA, Rosalind worked in strategic planning and business development with Palmetto Health and in health and human service policy research in the office of Governor Jim Hodges. A native of Mount Carmel, South Carolina, she holds a bachelor's degree in healthcare management from Lander University and a Master of Health Administration from the University of South Carolina. She's a Liberty Fellow, a graduate of Leadership Columbia, and serves on the boards of the United Way of the Midlands and Right Direction Church International. A fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives, she's a recipient of the James E. Clyburn Community Award for Healthcare Leadership from the University of South Carolina's School of Public Health. Early Career Healthcare Executive Regents Award from the American College of Healthcare Executives, and the Alice Kemp DeWitt Award for Outstanding Volunteer Work from the United Way. She's also the co-founder of Confidence. She and her 7-year-old daughter, Gabby, solved the age-old problem of disappearing hair barrettes by inventing Gabby bows, the first and patented double-face, double-snap barrette. They're patented barrettes engineered to prevent hair slippage, along with the plant-based girls' natural hair product line to save families time, money, and frustration while removing stress from the styling process so moms, dads, and girls can cherish this precious time together. They've been featured on TV and in major publications. Gabby was named the 2015 South Carolina Young Entrepreneur of the Year, the youngest to ever receive this award. As if that's not enough, Rosalind also manages the career of her husband, comedian Mike Goodwin. Rosalind, Mike, and their daughter Gabby and son Michael live in Columbia, South Carolina. So now let's get the program started. Over to Chantel. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am super excited to meet Rosalind and have this conversation. I've been looking forward to this discussion for quite some time, and I know we only have about 30 or so minutes to chat, so I say, Rosalind, we just dive right in.
Let's do it.
So you have a powerful story, which Jen just alluded to, and we'll get a little bit more details about that, about your journey as a mother and as an entrepreneur and a mother of a young CEO who, like we heard, had this idea to fix a problem that you were both experiencing when she was 5 years old. But before we get into that, about what we now know as Confidence by Gabby Goodwin and Gabby Bowes, we're here to talk about and discuss allyship, and specifically allyship for women of diverse backgrounds. So why don't we begin with something really simple just to get the conversation going, and that is how would you define or describe what makes a great ally? Because that's one of those buzzwords that we tend to hear a lot in this space, especially during this time. So what would you describe as a great ally?
Before I go there, I want this to be interactive. So I want to see your questions. I want to see your aha moments. I put makeup on today. Okay. Y'all don't understand. I couldn't even find my sponge this morning because I have not been putting on makeup. Now I still have on my yoga pants. I will not be separated from my yoga pants, even though I have on a nice shirt. Nothing but death and returning back to the work will separate me from my yoga pants. But I want you tagging your friends, texting your friends if they registered and if they're not here. We do want this to be interactive this morning. So thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us for this great discussion. It's going to be a great discussion and we want you to be part of it. So questions in the comments in the comments. We want this to be interactive.
Yes.
An ally. I think a lot of times we think about allies as friends, people who are kind to you. An ally to me, though, is so much more than that. An ally is also an advocate. And an ally has action that backs up their allyship, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So it's bigger than, I have friends of different backgrounds. I've invited them to my house, and they come to my birthday party, and we go to lunch together. That's being nice and being friends. But if someone is saying something behind their back, or you defending them, if you see an opportunity that they should be taking advantage of, are you pushing them? Are you recommending them? Are you advocating for them? Are you taking action for them? I think about one of the greatest allies in my life, Dr. Susan Boyd. Who's just an amazing philanthropist. She's just an amazing example of that, and the work her and her husband, Ed Sellers, have done for the United Way of the Midlands is just immeasurable. I met her when I was at the University of South Carolina studying to get my Master of Health Administration. And, immediately I saw that she was more than just a professor. She was constantly pushing me, encouraging me to take advantage of various opportunities. When she had a former student call and say, I've got an entry-level position coming up open at Palmetto Health, and I'm looking to give a recent graduate of the MHA program an opportunity, can you recommend some people? And Dr. Boyd was like, nope, I recommend one person. She basically set this thing up for me, and I went to an interview, but it was Dr. Boyd said that I should get the job. So it really wasn't an interview. It's people using their power and their influence to advocate for you, to push for you. It's you seeing another sister at work, another female at work, and you see that she's being stretched with more responsibilities, and you pulling her to the side and say, okay, I see you've gotten more responsibilities, but did they increase your pay? Is you seeing, and I've seen this, and I've done this even in my own job, people just coming in, taking on more, and people just taking advantage of them, pushing them over, not giving them an office space when there's open office space, but they may be giving it to males, so those type things, advocating for them face to face and even behind their back with other people, speaking up for them, it is action that makes or creates an ally in my eyes.
And I love that. I love that. We got to figure out how to coin that phrase. An ally is really an advocate in action.
Yes.
Perfect. And I think one of the things that you hit on that separates an ally, just a friend, if you will, from someone who is truly a great ally, is them using the influence that you talked about with Dr. Boyd, using their privilege to advocate for women. And I'm so glad you brought that up, particularly as it relates to your own workplace, because one of the things that I wanted to do in this conversation is dispel that myth that women don't support women at work, or, if somehow you're supporting one woman, then that means that you're not supporting some other woman, particularly women of color. And so can you just speak to that on how you have specifically acted or served as an ally and advocate with action at work?
Absolutely. And I mean, we're going to keep it real.
We have to.
If I can keep it 100, I need to see 100 in the comments. There's certainly that. And I mean, I think we've got to work to dispel the different myths about, women not supporting each other, not helping each other. I mean, the first ally I thought about when we were having this conversation, and that I even mentioned, was a woman. There's certainly been male allies in my life. Alan Stalvey with the Hospital Association, Senator John Drummond, the late great Senator John Drummond. So many people have been allies who took their influence and, created action to help advance me and advocate for me. It could be as simple as I mentioned before, not letting someone have a conversation about another female in your workplace, behind their back, about whatever. I've gone to bat for people who, serve, I guess at other levels in our organization when they would work, but not getting an increase in pay. And they didn't seem to be going anywhere in their conversations with leadership. So me going to leadership and saying, okay, I noticed that our sister is taking on all this work, but she's not getting a raise. Why is she not getting a raise? And putting myself on the line and say, okay, well, why are you being a troublemaker? Was that any of your business? But it is your business if you're an ally. And if you see a sister not getting her fair share, I'm first going to them or they're coming to me. And I think it speaks to, if you are open, or even people have the perception that you're an ally, that they even feel that they can come to you and say, I've been stuck in this salary for so many years and I keep taking on more responsibility. I keep applying for opportunities here at this organization and keep getting passed over. I've had many women come to my office and say that, because they feel that I am an ally, that I can talk them through it, I can coach them through it. And if I need to, I can go to those who make those decisions and ask, an honest question. Why is this person being passed over for an opportunity? Why is this person not being considered for an increase? So it looks like that. It looks like, as I mentioned before, just even pulling aside a new mom who may be frustrated by everything that's going on and trying to maintain everything as if nothing has happened. Listen, motherhood is a big happening, okay? You're not going to become a mom and everything would just go on as usual. And I had that crazy misconception. I just thought I would just spit Gabby out and spit Gabby out if it was that simple. I thought I'd spit her out and I just go back to climbing the ladder like nothing happened. And oh man, did everything change. But you can see that in every young mom who comes back to work, even the day they come back. Are you an ally in helping them, counseling them, and, encouraging them? Every time I see a new mom come back, I'm telling them, have you worked out a flexible schedule? I'm asking them, you can do this. I did it. You can do it too. You don't need to be here every day. Talk to your supervisor, tell them this. Make this transition easier for you to come back. All of those things look like allyship, and it's you taking your influence, whether you're in leadership in your position, taking your experience, because they didn't see you when you first came back, when you had your child. They just assumed that you just kept going like you did. Like, no, I had a flexible schedule and you can get one too. So pulling them aside to help them, as it relates to, helping one female versus, helping another female, it is definitely something that we have to pay attention to. As I mentioned, and if you don't know Susan Boyd, she is a white female and has been the strongest ally in my professional career. So it is certainly possible. I think that the root of that is we see the commonality that we are women. We see the commonality are moms, that we are all dealing with some of the same struggles. And we push past whatever exterior thing that's in our mind that, okay, if I help her, maybe that's going to decrease my chances for advance. But we all come together and we climb together and we all advance together. Because as I elevate, I'm bringing you with me. and seriously, I mean, that's how we have to look at this. You helping another woman advance doesn't set you back. We're all advancing together.
And that's so key, right? Because, especially at work, I mean, a lot of times we're all competing for, the same positions, and the higher you go up, I mean, the less women you see, the less diversity you see, period, right? And so that you gave us some great keys to really think about in terms of how we can all get there together. How do you make women care? Because you mentioned making a great ally. One of the things is using your voice. If you see something, if you see an inequity, if you see something that needs to be changed, you use your voice, you use your influence, you use your network, and you make a change. But how do you get people to champion for you?
I think it really boils down to relationship. I think, and it's challenging right now since we're quarantined and isolated to establish those relationships, but we've got to make an extra effort, particularly as organizations, leaders of organizations, to still help people gather, even if we're not physically together. And once we have conversation, we realize there's so many things we have in common, more we have in common than we have different. And once I have a conversation with you, and though we may come from two totally different backgrounds, when we talk, when we converse, when we gather, I realize that, wow, we have a lot in common. You have a daughter, I have a daughter. Mm-hmm. You have siblings, I have siblings. You have an aging parent, I have an aging parent. And once we find those commonalities, that helps you care. So the context of relationship, the context of conversation, the context of, networking and building relationships, like through the Women in Philanthropy, that is how you get past whatever layers or barriers, and it's in the context of relationship that you think that, wow, I care. And then just, all of a sudden, I've got my love earrings on today. You just got to have enough love. And I certainly credit my love to my faith in seeing beyond the surface of someone and saying, okay, wow, we do have a lot in common. And I think those conversations, that time together, you identifying those commonalities helps you care.
Identifying commonalities is another great point. Does it matter then if the subject is a woman of color? Does allyship look different if you're dealing with, a person of color versus someone who's of the majority?
It definitely does. I mean, and I'm not gonna deny and act like it does. I'm thinking about another ally, male ally in my life, Alan Stalvey, who's still with the Hospital Association. He's always, if you've ever met Alan, you know that he's a very straight shooter, straight talker, very blunt. And he's never sugarcoated anything with me about race and, maybe what I had to encounter as he helped me elevate and climb and, really reach my full potential. You do have to recognize, as my mom taught me very early, that there are, and I don't teach Gabby this, so it is a little hardcore. So some of y'all may cringe a little bit when I say it, like, oh my God, is she really going there? But I'm just trying to let you know how I was raised. My mom, let me share who she is. My mom, first generation college student. Her mom got pregnant with her at 12. So she's a product of a teen mom. Went to jail for her 21st birthday, protesting at South Carolina State. Okay, so if you can image mom is, she taught in public education for 49 years before retiring, and still serves this day in various community organizations, foundations, and boards. She's 78 and is not slowing down anytime soon.
Wow.
Okay? So I was raised by that woman, the amazing Maggie Jones Banks. But she taught me very early that there were certain barriers that I would have to face. She told me very bluntly, and remember, she's raised in a different time period. She says, Roz, you've got 3 strikes against you. And I mean, I was probably 5 when she was telling me this. I'm like, what? You are Black, you are a female, and you are from rural South Carolina. You're from the county that most people do not think about. I remember when Governor Haley was traveling the state and they're celebrating all of these jobs that were being created in every county except one. Now, they didn't say that, but they just said massive job growth in all the counties across the state, or 35 counties in the state. And I said, well, why are they not talking about that one? That one county was my county, McCormick County. That one county, no job growth, no increase in jobs. So she told me very early, my mom, that, okay, that is what you're going to have to face. And just on the surface, before people have conversations with you, that's what people see. So you're going to have to work 3 times as hard. Now, that's daunting. Like I said, I don't tell my daughter that specifically because I just want her to have a more positive outlook on, I frame it differently. But when you are an ally for a woman of color, you do have to recognize that some of those things are there. There are some stereotypes. There are just some barriers. There are some things that, even if you nudge and push her, she's got some things that she's really battling with, even in her mentality. She's maybe never seen anyone achieve this type of success. You may say, like Alan pulled me to the side and said, wow, you are amazing with helping us come up with talking points to tell legislators. Why don't you come get registered and you tell them yourself? Now, I could have, and this is before I became a lobbyist. I was just kind of behind the scenes. And he said, I mean, you're the best one to communicate this. You give it to me and I take it to the legislators and I just mess it up. Why don't I get you registered and you come and tell them yourself?
Wow.
It was his words of confidence. I didn't know what a lobbyist was. Listen, I don't understand. I don't think y'all understand. Mount Carmel in McCormick County has one blinking caution light. Until recently, we had a single wide trailer painted red, white, and blue for our post office. I grew up with cousins with no indoor plumbing.
Yeah.
I still have cousins to this day who, you're so brave. You drive on all those roads. They're talking about the interstate. They've never been on the interstate. So here's someone telling me I can be a lobbyist at the state capitol.
How old were you when he poured that into you?
When he said that to me, I guess I was probably about 30. And, but I'm just saying, had I not had any type of experience before that, had I not worked for Governor Jim Hodges, I probably would have dismissed it. So you may have to spend a little bit more time if you're allying for a woman of color, because she may have some baggage that is not personal against you. She may not immediately jump on your recommendation. She really may be dealing with some other things that's going on. She may be dealing with being a first generation college student. She may be dealing with having to care for siblings or parents who are not doing well. She may be dealing with even guilt of success.
Yes.
She may be dealing with, how will people perceive me doing well when everybody else in my family is not doing well? So sometimes your allyship may not end with just a suggestion. It may have to be a push. It may have to be, I have set up a meeting for you to meet so-and-so. And it's at 9:30 tomorrow. I'll see you there.
I love it.
It's got to be a little bit more aggressive sometimes.
I love it. So you've talked about motherhood, a lobbyist, and all of these different responsibilities that you had, and even your 5-year-old mindset, with having a very influential mother championing you and giving you some tools in terms of just how she sees the world and setting you up for success with that mindset at 5. So I want to transition a little bit, if you can believe it. We've been going now for well over 20 minutes. But I want to transition now, with you describing your 5-year-old mindset and how you saw the world, and give us some context regarding how what we now know as Gabby Bowes getting started. How would you describe Gabrielle at 5 years old, and just share with us a few of the challenges that you were facing when the idea came to her to start this company.
Gabrielle was a persistent nagger. She still is. She was my broken record in pigtails. Just would not let anything go. But I saw so much of myself in her, and I'm sure you all can see that even in your sons. You laugh at them and you look at them and you're like, oh my God, that's me. That's me squared, or that's me to the fourth power. But she was me without the limitations, without the, you got all these strikes and we're stuck in this. She's me with exposure to more. She's me with parents who basically told us she could do anything, even though my husband and I would tell her that and then turn to the side and be like, oh my God, I don't know how we're going to do that. I remember when Gabby she was 5 and she had already started asking us daily about creating a barrette that would not slip out of her hair. And we were walking through Publix.
Okay.
She was literally asking me about this every day. And I just kind of push her off, brush her off. When we went walking in Publix and she said, Mommy, are my bows going to be sold in Publix? And my jaw dropped, and I knew better, from teaching from my pastor, that you just don't squash and squelch children's dreams. You say something to keep them encouraged and uplifted instead of, girl, I don't know how we're going to do this. Stop asking me about it. I mean, that's kind of probably what I would have heard. But I said something like, if you work hard and believe, anything is possible, Gabby. And then I turn my head and be like, oh my God, how in the world, where is she coming up with this? And I felt overwhelmed just thinking, like, I don't even know how to start. I don't know how to draw. What have you put in my daughter, God? I need this. I need some help. I don't want to let her down, but I do want to prove to her that nothing is impossible. So that was Gabby. And that determination, that innate leadership skill, that persistence, that perseverance, has led her to now. She just turned 14. And, she hit 6 figures by the 6th grade. I look at her and people like, she inspires them. Like, she inspires me. She has pushed me beyond whatever limitation I thought I had. But it all started with that empathy of a dream at 5 years old. And listen, you are around 5 women every day.
Yes. You
are around women who got that 5-year-old Gabby inside of them. Yes. They just need someone to encourage them, to push them, to motivate them. Don't let them get stuck. Don't let them get settled. Make them uncomfortable with where they are. If you see that they've got better potential, they've got more potential, and there's more in store for them. Don't let them get stuck. And that, what has happened in her is just a symbol or an example of what really can happen if we do ally for girls and the women around us.
I love it. I love it. So allyship in action with you and with Gabrielle. So you were advocating for her. She was persistent. Like you said, she had this innate leadership quality about herself. There was a problem with losing her hair bows, and she thought, let's make a hair bow. So where did you start? You said that you wanted to remove the boundaries, remove the limitations. So she's got this great idea. Now, how you gonna get it in Publix?
Well, we're not in Publix yet. Unless somebody in Publix is here in the chat, you send me a message. Let's hook this thing up and make that last dream come true. But it literally started where we were. At the level and age of her comprehension, we would sit down and I did a lot of research and said, okay, has anybody done this already? We realized someone has not. We just sat down at the kitchen table, and it took us a process of 2 years. So it's nothing quick. 2 years sitting down. We go buy barrettes in various stores and just kind of sit down at the age of her comprehension. We'd send her to school with some of them in one side and another kind on another side and see which one she'd come home with. If she came home with one of them, we said, okay, this one stayed in. What's different about this one versus that one? Mm-hmm. And it really was like a science project. That's all I really thought it was at the moment. I thought that, you know, if we came up with an idea, we could sell it and go on with our lives. I had never been exposed to entrepreneurship. I'm a first generation entrepreneur. I told you about my mom. Education was her way out. So she told me education was the key. That was it. You get to go to school as long as you can. You go get a good job and you stay on that good job. You get your watch. You retire.
Retire.
That's what you do. So when this whole entrepreneur bug bit me, I couldn't even tell my mom and my dad at first because that's too risky. That's too scary. We've come too far. We were just in poverty. Now education brought us out. And now you want to do something risky like entrepreneurship? They weren't ready for it. So I had to kind of tell them a little later once I started. But I thought it was just going to be a science project that we could sell. And I was actively trying to sell it. We went through 2 rounds of focus groups with a major company. And if I said their name, you know exactly who it was. And you'd be like, wow, you were about to sell this? Yes, I was. They wouldn't buy it, though. It would not be a Gabby Bell. It would be something totally different had I had my way. But it was because of no and Gabby's persistent that I couldn't tell. You know, I literally, the conversation with that major company was, you know, ma'am, this is not something that's in our strategic plan right now. And, you know, we're sorry, we're going to have to pass on it. And I said, listen, you don't understand how persistent. My daughter's asking me about this every day. You can't just cut me off. You gotta finish the science project. And they was just like, ma'am, how much it's going to cost? I said, nope. I have no idea how much it's going to cost. Do you know you're going to have to talk with manufacturing? You're going to get a tool and a prototype. I said, I don't even know what you're talking about, but I got to show my daughter that nothing's impossible. We've got to finish the science project. And he helped introduce me to engineers who introduced me to the manufacturer. We're working with the same people today. He was an ally, even in that company that told me when you call the engineers, they're going to tell you they don't work with startups, but you can tell them I told you to call. I showed up, took off work to go meet with this group of engineers, and it was a boardroom full of older white men. I walk in, and I guess they weren't expecting me, and I wasn't expecting them. And I tried to explain this idea of a hair barrette. Okay, they don't deal with hair barrettes. And they just kind of looked at me like, oh my gosh, she's wasted all of our 15 minutes. One ally in that group, I love how this is working together, says, ma'am, stop. Let me go grab something. He goes to the back, grabs a mannequin head and says, listen, I see you struggling. He whispered in my ear, start over with the, and I said, hold on, let me run to my car. I'm gonna dig in my seat. And I promise I probably found a bad barrette in my seat and I'm gonna bring that back to you. Sure enough, I went to my car, barrettes in my seat. I come back and start the demonstration over. And before I finish, another one stands up and says, ma'am, I think you're on to something.
Amazing.
That's what I needed. And that's how it all started. Allies, even in rooms like that, where we were very different and they didn't know what I was talking about. They couldn't even identify with the problem I was having. But one ally saying, let me go get a mannequin. Let me let you start over. That's how it started.
Wow. So you had to, again, you being an ally in action, an advocate in action for your daughter when she came to you with this, you know, what may have seemed like an insurmountable, like it's impossible to do this, but you were determined that you wanted to show her that nothing is impossible, that she can do anything. You gave her that confidence. And as a result of that, you also had to listen with courage, right? Because you said you were freaking out internally, like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do all of this? But despite your own fears, and instead of defending them and telling her all the ways that it can't be done, you went out on a mission, again, advocating as an ally in action. You listened with courage, and you ended up discovering another ally right in the room who used his influence, right? Who introduced you to his network. And that's what it's all about. And, you know, a few takeaways that we want to make sure, because I know we're wrapping up and we've gotten so many comments that there are questions. We want you to keep them coming, because we're going to try to get to all of them. One more thing that I want to just tap into is how we're paying it forward. How you're paying it forward, Rozalynn, with demonstrating allyship, and how you've taught Gabrielle to be an ally for girls of color in her ecosystem.
Absolutely. We started Gabby play dates for girls in children's shelters because she had to come with me to a United Way meeting about 6 years ago. I didn't have a sitter, so she was in the back of the room with me. And I guess at that time she was maybe 7. And I talked to her afterwards and, you know, said, Gabby, do you understand what we're doing? Understand what we're doing? So she caught on to what we were doing. But after I explained it to her more, she said, Mommy, I want to do the same thing with my business. I said, well, Gabby, we haven't launched yet. This was like January, we were launching in February. And she was like, no, I want to do something. She's just persistent about it now. I want to do something. I want to help. I want to do something. I want to do something. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's got another idea. And that started that whole concept of play dates with girls in children's shelters. She's about entrepreneurship. She came to us with another idea about 2 years ago. She said, I want girls who look up to me to be CEOs just like me. So, wow, what is that? But we came up with the concept of the Mommy and Me Entrepreneurship Academy, and we've helped 50 girls and their moms in 16 states start their own businesses under our brand with our coaching and products. So it is always paying it forward. It is, you know, not only solving the problems of our families, you know, with hair care and styling, but instilling that same confidence, not only with their hair, but with them getting the skills that are invaluable through the practice of entrepreneurship, whether they become business owners or not. They're learning how to sell. They're learning how to sell themselves.
Yes.
So when they have a job interview, they'll know how to sell. And they're learning as young as 2 years old. We've got 2-year-olds in the academy. How we are paying it forward. I want to say this because I want to make sure, of course, I want you to be thinking ally, action, advocate. It also means you using your voice.
Yes.
And I want to shout out, I know Sarah is not expecting this, but I want to shout out Sarah Fawcett for something she did that I have not been able to personally let her know, but publicly I want to thank her. Not long after the George Floyd murder, I, probably in a number of other Black Americans, maybe Black females, I found myself in a very dark place. Ahmaud Arbery had just been murdered. You know, I'm a mom of a Black boy, the husband of a Black man, the sister of Black men, daughter of Black men. And it was hard to describe where I was mentally, emotionally. As hopeful as you see me this morning, I was not there some months ago. We had a board call, and before it ended, Sarah just said, you know, and I can't exactly remember what she said, but my ears I said, wow. She said, I just want to say something to my Black colleagues here on this call. You know, and she said, I don't really know what to say. I just want to just let you know that I can't imagine how you feel right now. You know, I don't think she apologized, but she just said, I just want you to know that I care. And I cried after that. I mean, I really, because all of the calls I had, no one acknowledged what I might have been going through at that time. No one mentioned it. I mean, it was maybe just kind of like, we're in some crazy times right now.
Yeah.
Nobody knew that after I performed for work, and I did all of this, I was crying.
Yes.
I literally was crying after a meeting. And I couldn't explain why. I saw my husband crying, and I saw my son who was jumping around, but everybody was talking about maybe I need to start having conversations with my son about how he acts with police. He's 10. I don't want to have a conversation with my son about police.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm in emotional turmoil, but I'm still performing.
Mm-hmm.
But no one said, I care. I had one colleague reach out and just send me a text and was just like, I'm thinking about you. That broke me down.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah's action as an ally, and she didn't have a solution.
Right.
She couldn't fix what was going on.
Yeah.
But she used her voice to voice, I care.
Mm.
And some of you may feel right now that, man, it's so much going on in this world. I can't do anything about it. I'm not asking you to take responsibility or even apologize. Just express that you care. Because on top of racial and social unrest, we're dealing with the coronavirus epidemic,
right?
Pandemic that was impacting my race more than anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you represent 30% of the population, but you represent almost 60% of the deaths, and logging on to Facebook and seeing friends lose a father one day and a sister the next day, and it was just really taking a toll. So everything together, I was just in a bad spot right there. And when Sarah said, I care, I was able to cry because I had been angry for weeks.
Yeah.
So you may be sitting here like, I don't have the type of influence that she's talking about. I'm not Susan Boyd. I'm not Alan Stalvey. But you are Susie Donald. And you have a voice. You have a phone number. You can reach out and say, how are you doing? I care.
I care.
That's it.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And what you have described, and what we hope that everyone has learned, even during these few minutes that we've had to share, is that all of us have influence. Not whether big, small, whatever, we all have an influence, and we all have a circle of influence. So a few takeaways that we want to make sure, particularly for those of you who, we're talking about women of color, which Rozalynn so eloquently described, that it is different, and you should recognize that it's different. Empathy is very important. Empathy is a great trait for being a great ally, but using your voice. You have something to say. You have influence. You have privilege to advocate for women around you. So show up, stay involved, courageously listen, right?
Yeah.
Courageously listen, and then support them. It could be something as simple as, hey, I just want you to know that I care, that I see you, that I care. You can support them with your time. You can support them with your money, with your resources, with your networks. We want the people in the audience to know that you're all powerful, you're all influential, and we hope that you're all great allies. So I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer. Jen, I think you're gonna field us some questions that we've received, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can within the time that we have left.
Yeah, thanks so much, both of you, Chantal and Rozalynn. That was great, and lots of great comments and questions. And we'll get started here with a combination of both. The first one, thank you for your insights and sharing good examples of being an ally. Would also love any thoughts and examples on how allies can better understand and call out microaggressions that our sisters of color experience.
I'm gonna go to an example. There was a state appointed, I'm trying to tread on this very lightly, agency head, who I can't describe what the conflict was like. We were at odds about a particular policy issue and found ourselves in town hall debates years ago. It got to a point though that sometimes we were in meetings that he, catch my eye and start winking at me. It was the most bizarre, just like we were already in conflict, but I was always professional about it. And the winking almost was so demeaning to me as a woman, that at first, I didn't even say anything about it because I was like, okay, this is crazy. Somebody's going to think I'm making this up because I can't believe this is happening. But eventually they went to one of our board members and said that I was aggressive in some type of exchange that we had on a public forum. Just crazy. Okay. So then, the leader of our organization, Thornton Kirby, who's amazing ally, brings me in. And I just can't believe all this is happening. And I wish I had said, this person's winking at me in professional meetings. And so I bring all this up then, and they're like, oh my God, why didn't you come and share us? I didn't know what to do. I've had a legislator who was just constantly hitting on me, graphically telling me what he would do to my body parts. So I've had these encounters, but I've had people in my circle, allies like Alan Stalvey, that I could go to and say, after I learned after dealing with that agency head, I went to them first. After that, when something like that surfaced, I said, look, this is what's going on. I'm a big girl. I can handle it, whatever. And you don't necessarily need to confront them, but they were ready to confront if they needed to. And that's all I needed to know, is that you're in my corner. If I need to confront this person, I will. And that is just kind of how you deal with that. But, those are some, I know you weren't expecting those examples, whoever asked the question. But this is real life. And I think the way you help is that you make yourself always open. You don't just go to somebody when you got a time for review, that you really are checking in with people to see how they're doing. You're sitting down and you're not just saying, how you doing? And you're walking while you're doing it. You literally are sitting down at the table in front of the desk. How are you doing? How's everything going? And you're having regular conversations. So I can bring that up, and that I feel that we have an open relationship, that I can talk to you about that. And then, solidify, make sure that they know you are in their corner. And if you need some action taking place, I don't mind doing it. I remember the way Alan told me, like, listen, I can handle this right now if you want me to. I will call. I don't care who it is. I don't care if it is a legislator. I don't care if it is an agency head. I don't care if it. I will handle this. And I'm like, wait, who doesn't want that? Right. What female doesn't want somebody to be like, don't make me. Somebody mess with you? Like, that's how the people around you should feel.
Right.
Like, you are an ally to that point, that you will take action like nothing else.
And I'll just add to that point, a lot of times we see in the workforce where, microaggressions, they show up like you could all be in a meeting and your voice is overlooked. Right. Or how many of us as women have, raised an idea, had a thought or perspective that we've shared with the collective group, only to be dismissed by whoever's leading that discussion. And then lo and behold, a male could say the very same thing. And oh my goodness, he has discovered water. He has discovered fire. And that was the smartest thing that anybody's ever heard. I'm sure we've all experienced, I just said that 5 minutes ago. Like, so those types of microaggressions, the way that you can address those and really help is particularly when you're in situations where you're leading meetings, you're leading teams, or you're even in those meetings. Go back to what we said about using your voice and making sure that everybody who is at the table has had an opportunity to use their voice.
And sometimes that was
acknowledge it. Exactly.
Rosalind just said that. That's right.
exactly.
You sound just like Rosalind.
You sound just
You
like
said
Rosalind.
the same thing Rosalind said.
Yes, yes. So just small things like that, but using your voice in practical ways to address that. And then if someone does come to you to say that this was their experience, believe them. A lot of times people who are marginalized, who are victimized, who experience those types of microaggressions, people don't believe them. Hey, I've tried to speak up several times in this meeting and my manager just completely ignores me. Oh, well, that's just Bob. That's just Jim. That's just Susie. That's just how she is.
Yeah.
Believe them.
Yeah.
If they have enough courage to come to you and share this very uncomfortable experience, believe them.
Yeah, that's great. So one quick, and we're getting tight on time, but just one quick, because it's a good follow-up to the answer you all just gave. Can you address the concept of coming across as a white savior? How can white women be allies for women of color without coming across this way? Are women of color concerned about this? And we do only have a few minutes left, so.
Save me.
Woo.
Save me. That's my answer. I could care less about how you come across. If you care about me, save me. Okay. I think that is a barrier that keeps people from action. You're overthinking it. You've got power. You've got influence. You've got a voice. Save a sister. Period. Get over yourself. Get over you thinking about what other people. You wasting time. The sister's drowning. Save your sister. Get over yourself.
Perfect. I think that's a great spot to end at. Both of you were fantastic. Thank you so much on behalf of the United Way and Colonial Life. And now we're going to turn it over to United Way CEO Sarah Fawcett to close us up for the morning. Thank you all again.
And thanks, Jen. Thanks, Chantel. You guys were awesome. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Colonial Life. I think Colonial Life has set one of the great standards in terms of addressing equity and justice. And Tim knows that. And I will say it to anybody who'll listen. I really admire how Colonial Life has really sunk your teeth into it. And you two are great examples. Since this is not your day job, you've got day jobs within Colonial Life too. So thank you very much for what you did this morning. Roz, man, I'm telling you, you are amazing. You are amazing. And I've had the privilege of serving with Roz on the board of United Way years ago. And it's just been great to be able to work with you to the betterment of the community. So, I picked up so many things. I got a page full of notes. And the biggest things that I hope we all walk away with are that an advocate plus action equals an ally.
Yes.
It's one thing to put your arm around somebody. It's another thing to guide them with that arm. And I'm going to remember that for a long time. So thank you for sharing that. I think relationship was another thing I heard over and over again. It's all about relationships and using your voice. We all have a voice. Every single person on this call, we have a voice. It does not matter what your title at work is. It does not matter if you have kids or not. It doesn't matter. What does matter is you have a voice and you have a unique voice. Let's use it for each other. Again, it is just a pleasure to have been able and a privilege to have been able to listen in on this conversation this morning. You guys have done an awesome job. Thank you so much. I am powered up and ready to go for the day. I hope everybody else is too. So I will turn it back over, Chantel and Jen.
Well, I think that's the end of the call, and this is the first of a series of conversations that Colonial Life is sponsoring with the United Way. So look forward to having the next sponsored one. We don't have it scheduled yet, but we will get that out in front of everyone and hope to have, the same, if not more attendance. This was a great group, great conversation. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.